For days, that's all that stands between us and the opening kickoff of the 2026 FIFA World Cup, the tournament that was supposed to rewrite football history. 48 teams, 3 host nations, 104 matches across 16 cities in the United States, Canada, and Mexico. FIFA's president famously described the demand for it as being like 1,000 years of World Cups at once. But here's what's interesting. Right now, with the opening ceremony just around the corner, a very different picture is starting to emerge. Hotels in host cities are sitting below their booking forecasts. International flights into the United States for July are tracking lower than the same period last year, a non-World Cup year. 80% of hoteliers across American host markets have told industry researchers that their bookings are coming in below what they initially projected. And it's not just one thing driving this. It's a combination of factors that have quietly been building for months. Pricing, travel barriers, visa complications, and a global hesitancy around visiting the United States that together add up to something FIFA didn't fully anticipate when it designed the biggest World Cup in history. So the question worth asking right now, for days before it all starts, is this: how did the tournament with the most demand in football history end up facing a problem this big, this close to kickoff? Let's get into it. To understand where we are today, you have to go back to how this tournament was sold to the world. The 2026 World Cup was always going to be unprecedented in scale. The expanded 48-team format, introduced for the first time, was designed to bring in more nations, more fan bases, more global interest. The 3-country hosting model, spreading matches across the US, Canada, and Mexico, was positioned as a celebration of North American football culture and a logistical showcase that would inspire future tournaments. FIFA projected that 6 million fans would attend across all 104 matches. Host cities were told to expect a roughly even split between domestic and international visitors. Hotels, airlines, and local businesses prepared for what was forecast to be a $30 billion economic windfall for North America. But the numbers coming in right now tell a different story. A survey published by the American Hotel and Lodging Association found that 8% of hoteliers across US host markets say their bookings are tracking below initial forecasts. In Kansas City, one of the 12 US host cities, that figure rises to between 85 and 90%. Respondents from that city described the tournament, in the words of the AHLA report, as feeling like a non-event, with demand trailing a typical June or July with no World Cup. That's a striking phrase. A typical June, no World Cup effect, and it's not just hotels. European airline reservations to the United States for July are down 14% compared to the same booking window last year. Bookings from Europe to US host cities for June were down 5%. Demand from Asia is down around 3.5%. South American bookings are essentially flat. Game day room rates across several host cities have dropped by around a third from their earlier peaks, suggesting that even the hotels that did set ambitious prices have had to adjust expectations. Significantly, this is the landscape the tournament is opening into on June 11. Here's where things get interesting. Because when you look at why international fans aren't converting their excitement into confirmed bookings, the answer goes well beyond ticket prices. One of the most significant and underreported barriers is the US visa system. The State Department has paused immigrant visa processing from 75 countries. including some of the world's most passionate football nations, Brazil and Nigeria among them. For fans from those countries, attending the World Cup in the United States isn't just expensive, it's bureaucratically complicated in a way that previous World Cups simply weren't. Even for fans from countries not affected by formal processing pauses. The wait times for standard visitor visa interviews have stretched well into 2026. For many supporters, the practical reality was that by the time their visa situation became clear, flight and hotel prices had already moved beyond what they were willing to pay. That 70% of hotel owners and operators surveyed by the AHLA, who cited visa barriers and broader geopolitical concerns as significantly suppressing international demand. That's not a small or fringe finding. That's the majority of the hospitality industry in host markets telling you directly that the barriers to entry are functioning as a wall between global football fans and the stadiums they want to fill. Think about what that means for the atmosphere. A World Cup gets its energy from the collision of cultures in the stands. Brazilian fans singing in one section, English supporters in another, Mexicans, Argentinians, Senegalese, South Korean ultras filling in the rest. That mix is what makes a World Cup feel different from any other football event. If the visa process is filtering out significant portions of those fan bases before they even reach the airport, the atmosphere inside the stadiums suffers, even if every seat is technically occupied, and the cost dimension compounds this further. Airfares, accommodation, and daily expenses in major American cities like New York, Los Angeles, and Dallas have surged. A family traveling from Europe or South America to attend even 2 or 3 matches is looking at a total trip cost that exceeds what most fans spent on an entire 2022 Qatar World Cup experience. Interestingly, the US dollar is actually down 12% against the euro compared to last year, meaning American travel is mathematically more affordable for European fans than it was in 2025, and yet the bookings are still lower. That tells you the hesitation is about more than just exchange rates. The bigger issue here is one of structural design, and to understand it, it helps to look at what previous World Cups got right, even when they faced their own challenges. In 2022, Qatar was a single compact country with a handful of venues all within driving distance of each other. Critics questioned the choice of hosts long before the tournament, but once fans arrived, the logistics actually worked. A supporter could attend multiple matches across different groups in the same week without booking a flight. Hotel prices were high, but there was only one accommodation market to navigate. The concentrated format created intensity. In 2018, Russia presented its own set of complications, concerns about safety, the geopolitical backdrop, and skepticism about the fan experience. But the tournament ultimately delivered memorable football and genuine atmospheres, partly because the price of attending was more accessible than what's on offer in 2026. What makes 2026 different is that it has taken the scale of the ambition to a level that creates logistical friction at almost every stage of the fan journey. A supporter following their team from the group stage through to the knockout rounds may need to cross borders, book multiple domestic flights, navigate visa requirements across 2 or even 3 countries, and absorb accommodation costs in cities where the hotel industry was already among the most expensive in the world. This matters because the 48-team expansion, which was designed to make the World Cup more inclusive globally, has in some ways worked against accessibility. For the very fans it was supposed to bring closer to the game. More matches means more low-profile games in large venues. More venues across a vast geography means more travel. More travel means more cost. And more cost, layered onto existing barriers, means fewer international fans in the stands. There's another element worth noting. The Club World Cup, which FIFA ran in the United States earlier this summer as a warm-up tournament, showed attendance patterns that raised quiet concerns well before the main event. Some matches were played in front of crowds that were a fraction of what the venues could hold. The early warning signs were visible, and they've informed how some analysts are now reading the main tournament setup. Player and fan IMP stiffy for the players stepping out in these stadiums. This backdrop matters more than it might appear from the outside. The atmosphere inside a stadium is not just a nice-to-have detail. It directly affects the experience of playing. The noise, the energy, the sense that every touch of the ball is being felt by 60 or 70,000 people. That's what separates a World Cup match from a friendly. When sections of those venues sit quiet, or when the cultural mix that usually defines the stands is reduced, the game feels different. Players feel it. Coaches feel it. For the fans who have managed to make the trip, and many have, at significant personal cost, the experience will still be extraordinary at the big matches. When England face Croatia, when Brazil take the field, when the host nations play in front of their home crowds, those stadiums will be loud and full of meaning. No one is suggesting the football won't be spectacular, but the concern is the gaps. The group stage matches between lower-profile nations in large American venues, priced beyond what casual local fans or long-haul travelers are willing to pay. Those are the games that risk defining a visual narrative, empty sections broadcast around the world, that sits uncomfortably alongside FIFA's language of the biggest, most inclusive World Cup in history. Would you still travel to a match if you knew the stadium might be half empty around you? Drop that in the comments. Because it's a real question fans are asking each other right now. So what happens from here? The most immediate thing to watch is whether the combination of late ticket releases, softening resale prices, and local demand fills the gaps as the tournament builds momentum. Historically, World Cups tend to improve as they go. The group stage is always the quietest phase. By the time the round of 16 and quarterfinals arrive, the atmosphere tends to escalate significantly, especially if the big teams are performing. If Brazil, Argentina, France, Germany, England, and the host nations are all still alive deep into the tournament, those knockout matches will be extraordinary regardless of what happened in the group stage. Football has a way of overwriting its own pre-tournament narrative. Once the matches actually start, the best-case scenario from this point is straightforward. The football takes over. Group stage concerns fade as knockout excitement builds. Some of the empty seats from less followed matches are forgotten in the noise of a genuinely memorable last 16 onwards. And FIFA uses the experience as the basis for a serious structural review before 2030. The more difficult scenario is one where the early images, quiet sections, transportation challenges, hotels running below capacity in cities that expected a boom become the story that follows the tournament into its legacy, where the gap between the ambition of what was promised and the reality of what was delivered becomes what people remember about 2026. FIFA has the football. It has 48 of the best national teams in the world. It has venues that are genuinely extraordinary. What it's facing now is a question about whether the system built around those ingredients The ticket model, the visa landscape, the cost of getting there was designed to serve the fans who were always supposed to be at the center of it. That's the conversation that will run all the way through July 19th, and it won't end when the final whistle blows at MetLife Stadium. Conclusion and Eon J. Gem. So, here's where things stand. On June 7th, 2026, 4 days from kickoff, the 2026 World Cup is the largest tournament football has ever produced. 48 teams, 104 matches, 3 countries, and a set of structural challenges: ticket pricing, visa barriers, international travel hesitancy, hotel bookings below forecast that are bigger and more complex than FIFA publicly acknowledged heading into this week. None of this means the football won't be magnificent. It almost certainly will be. But the problems are real, and they're documented now by hotel surveys, airline booking data, attorney general investigations, and the images already coming out of early matches at these venues. The question isn't whether 2026 will produce great football moments. It will. The question is whether those moments will be surrounded by the atmosphere and global fan presence that a World Cup is supposed to create, and I want to hear what you think. Do you believe FIFA underestimated how difficult it would be for international fans to actually get to this tournament? Or do you think the football itself will fix the narrative once it gets going? Tell me in the comments. Genuinely curious where you land on this. If this breakdown was useful to you, hit the like button right now. It helps this channel reach more football fans who are following the 2026 story closely. And if you want to stay across every major development as the tournament unfolds, the upsets, the controversies, the moments that nobody predicted, subscribe and hit the bell. We'll be here for all of it, all the way to the final. This story is still developing. And as always, football never stays quiet for long. See you in the next one. Before you go, if you want the full breakdown on the ticketing controversy and the legal investigation, FIFA is now facing from 2 state attorneys general. That video is on screen right now. It goes deep on numbers that will genuinely surprise you. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now is the time. The 2026 World Cup is only just getting started. And this channel is going to cover every twist and turn between now and July 19th. One click. See you there.